Good morning and happy whatever day it is, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. Today's video is going to be about how to sew on paper because today on the iCAD, the topic is thread. That's actually the prompt today is thread for the index card a day mixed media challenge for today. And I absolutely love sewing on paper. I love sewing and quilting, and that's my background. I've talked about this multiple times before, but I always talk about this. It's something it's just a thing about me. But so today I thought we would talk about how to sew on paper, what to do. It's very simple. It's just a matter of saying, I'm going to do it because you can, okay? And I wanted to show you how to sew on paper using my favorite machine. Shh, don't tell my other machines that this is my favorite. This is my Featherweight. Her name is Ginny because my grandmother's name is was Virginia. And I don't know if anybody ever called her Ginny, but my grandmother was an avid quilter. She made quilts for all 23 grandchildren and all 10 children that she had. And I think she probably made more than that. But as far as I know, those are the quilts that she made. And so I just feel like she's kind of my sewing quilting muse. And so I named my machine Ginny. And all of my machines have names. I have a Husqvarna. It's actually an Opal, and its name is Opal because I'm not very creative with my names. I have a Janome, and I call it Jan because it's a Janome. So I'll just go through a few little things about sewing on paper. First, I wanted to show some examples of how you can sew on paper, what you can create when you sew on paper. I mean, obviously you could sew on fabric. That's fun too. I love doing that. But I wanted to show some examples of things that I've done. I feel like no matter what you do, if you can go back and add a little bit of stitching using a sewing machine, it just absolutely adds this amazing other layer, literally, of good morning, everybody, of something else. I love seeing the posts on Instagram and of people that are doing this, and seeing people do it on YouTube also. But I see this on Instagram. I just absolutely love people go back and I add, and it's so funny because in the quilt world and sewing world, you don't really want these extra threads hanging out. But guess what? I really like them. I love this extra little bit of texture and something ruggedness. Okay, so these are just some little collage pieces that I did. I mean, literally like bits of paper just glued to each other, right? And so I just went back in, and I'll show you how you can sew in a circle. You can absolutely do it. There's not anything special that you need to do it. This one I just highlighted the words. I like to do that a lot. If I see a word on the page that I like, I'll just highlight it. This one I was attempting to do a sketchy sort of flower or some sort of element that looks kind of floral, okay? And of course I did all of these after the glue dried, so wait for your glue to dry and then go back and add your stitching. I'm pretty sure I waited for my glue to dry. This one I just wanted to circle. You can just use the stitching to just highlight one little specific piece in your collage. Okay, and then like this one I just went around that way. And I mean, I've used stitching to actually make books. Like I've sewn a book. And I don't know where I put it, of course. You just can put pages together. Oh, darn. And just completely sew down the middle, and you can create a book that way. You can do all kind. There you go, botanical. Thank you. Yeah, here's another one. I like those words, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do with these little collage pieces, but I really love adding that stitching to them. This one's another botanical, like Marpy said there. So I also will use stitching to just make like a pocket. So you can I just back stitched at the end, and I just folded the book, go in a little square, and there you have a little pocket. Okay. So those are some examples. I've also started, I took my index cards that I've done so far. I decided I wanted to start adding a stitched element to them. So, and this is hard right now because my camera is at a different angle, so I'm really sorry if my camera gets all weird, but I'm trying. It's really hard to film a sewing machine from top down, which is how my camera is set up. So, so I have another tripod for it, or attacher thing, but it clips to the table and then it shakes whenever the camera shakes whenever it's sewing. So I can't really do that. So this one, all I did was, this was one of my days of lace, and so all I did was went back in this page. I thought this was kind of plain, so I just went back and added some stitching. Okay, so you can see I've gone back. I love having like how there's just threads hanging off. I've done stitching that's actually with actual like just hemp thread. So this is obviously with a big needle, big-eyed needle that I actually have for my book binding kit that I have at hand. So I went in and started adding some stitching. These are from the month of July when I've started adding prompts from my journal, my art journal prompt page. So my journal play page, prompts page, this one. Okay, this is a freebie if you join my newsletter. So if you join on my newsletter, and the links are wherever, whatever place you're looking, you can get this journal play prompts page for free as an email. And if you don't get it, just let me know and I'll email it to you. But I started adding those because I want these cards to be useful. And so going forward, I'm going to start adding, I'm just adding these so I can just pull out a card and do something. This one is one of my favorites because it's stitched by hand, but I use the sewing machine to draw a circle around it. And if the threads bother you, you can go back and actually pull them through and tie them off, or put some glue on them, and then they won't go anymore. So I just use my stitching. I like to add the line, kind of like a frame. Sometimes you can go all the way around. Sometimes you can go half. I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, so I think it looks really cool how it is, but when you go back and you add that, and I just use black, and this is actually a quilting thread. I'll talk about that in a minute. When you go back and you add that extra element, it just, to me, it just makes the page and the item just go crazy. This one's a stitch with machine, which was actually heavy acrylic was the prompt of that day, and then I used stitch with machine, and then this is actually for today's prompt. This one I haven't done yet. So these are all examples of how I've added stitching. Now, I have one more thing I want to show because I just love it so much. So I've been playing with, because the Mixed Media Menagerie this month, one of our items we have to use is a patty paper, which is for hamburgers. And, you know, so what I love about this patty paper is it's just these little squares, and it's kind of like deli paper, right? And it just pops out. Ooh, and then you can just put paint on it and you can play with it, and it's absolutely fun. I love how small it is. I love the deli paper, which also is in a box like this, and it's a little bigger, right? But this is just so fun, and this is 1,000 sheets, and I'm sure it probably cost $5 on Amazon. And my husband actually bought it to make hamburger patties because he was going to make, you know, he's like, I'm going to make our own hamburger patties. We're going to freeze them and then we'll have hamburgers. He hasn't done it yet. I've used more of the pages for my art stuff than he hasn't ever used it. And I said, okay, I'm commandeering this box now of this patty paper. So I'll just buy you another box. He's like, no, don't even worry about it. I'm never going to do it. So he accepted that he wasn't going to do it. And, you know, I just, I get to keep all the patty paper, which is so fun. I've been using it for collage over and over. And so like this one, I thought I just love so much because it's got this fun element of the stamp, which is a Tim Holtz stamp, some paint that I just swiped on there from, I think, a gel plate day, and then I just went back and added some stitching again. The repeating of the black from the stamp to the stitching, to me, is super fun. And when you go back to, when you collage this into your book or where onto your page, my theory, and this is actually a little bit of Stabilo, that I followed the thing that Nicole did, and she does a Sibylla Puddle, trademark Nicole, and you just scribble some Sibylla on there, and then you get it wet, and you make it like all yummy, and it makes a really neat design too when it dries. You know, if your husband can't find something in your garage and he goes and looks in your art stuff, no, that's not allowed. My husband doesn't ever come in he doesn't come in my room. He has to like ask permission. But yeah, I mean, the patty paper was in the kitchen, and I was just like, he's never going to use it. Even if I took half of those, he wouldn't even notice. It's 1,000 sheets. He's going to make 1,000 hamburgers, seriously. But, yeah, my husband he's a computer guy, so he doesn't actually really work in the garage that much either. So good and bad, I don't know. But, so, yeah. So, I think once this is collage, my theory is it's the paper tends to just melt. It just melts into the background, which is just like any other deli paper or tissue paper would do. And so, because this really is like a deli paper. I mean, it's a thin paper, and it's not waxy. It's kind of like a deli paper, in my opinion. And it really does just disappear. So whatever you've stamped or stitched or painted or whatever will just show up. So that's some examples of stitches on paper. Now let's talk a little bit about what you need to do that. Now, I wanted to show you that I'm using this is a Featherweight machine. It is from, I don't know what year, a long time ago. It's a vintage machine. It only does 2 kinds of stitches. It only does straight forward and straight backwards, because you move this little, you can't see it. You move this little handle thing on the end here. Let me move it over just a little bit. You move this little piece right here up, and that makes it go reverse. There's absolutely no zigzag. There's no fancy stitches. It's a super, super basic machine, which I love. I actually, my Janome is also basic. It's about 6 stitches. And I only ever use straight and zigzag, which is all you're doing is changing the width of the stitch to be zigzag. So, but I have a fancy machine too. I don't use it very often because I like to just use the basic stuff. This is easy to just grab. I actually keep it close to my desk, and I put it on my desk when I'm sewing with it, or I'll just move it around wherever I'm going to sew with it. But I wanted to show you that it's a very simple machine. It's not anything special. I haven't dropped the feed dogs, which is a quilting thing. I don't have a special foot. I just have a plain, the foot on here is just a a quarter inch for piecing, quilting. Sorry. And, so I have black quilting weight thread. I think it's like a 50. It's a little thicker, which I really like because it gives you a really nice texture on the page. It shows up really well. I would say in the world of quilting that I go in, there's like, people don't necessarily want super thick thread necessarily to show up. They want thinner thread. It'll create a design, but it doesn't create a pop. But so I had this and I thought this will work. And then my bobbin thread is just whatever normal thread that I had in the bobbin. So, but it is cotton. That's the kind of thread I use. I'm sure you could use polyester. You could use whatever thread you have. I don't think it, if you're sewing on paper, it really doesn't matter. Like, it just absolutely does not matter. Some people might argue with that. I would love to talk to them because I want to know why they think it matters. I would say if you're sewing in fabric, it matters what kind of thread you use, because the words I've always heard, the way I've always heard it is, whatever fabric you're using, if you're using cotton, also use cotton thread. If you're using polyester to make clothing, also use polyester thread, because that way they shrink at the same rate, and they will, the polyester is stronger than the cotton, so it'll cut through the fabric at some point. Eventually, a long time down the road, it'll probably cut the fabric because it's stronger. But when it comes to paper, no big deal. When it comes to your stitch length, so you might want to just lengthen your stitch a little bit, because if you make really small stitches, what you're doing is you're cutting the paper with your needle. You are poking a hole in the paper. The closer your stitches are, the closer those holes are going to be, and so you're more likely to actually perforate your paper. And in the quilt world, we do paper piecing, and when you're doing paper piecing, you actually shorten your stitch length because you're literally sewing over paper onto your fabric, and you want to be able to pull the paper off. But if you're just stitching your your card or your paper and you want to actually do it as an element, you want to lengthen your stitch a little bit so that you're not perforating your paper. Okay, so I would say lengthen your stitch. I can't necessarily give you a number because the number on my machine is going to be different from the more modern machines. I mean, mine says, I think it's about a 10 or 11 stitch. I don't know really what that means. I don't know if that means 11 stitches per inch. I don't really know what the numbers mean, but mine is like a 10 or 11. I think on the newer machines you get like you'd probably be at like I think on my Janome I'm usually at a 3 or 4. So it just kind of depends. Yes, you said you discovered rainbow variegated thread. Yeah, that would be really fun. Variegated thread is super fun. I have a bunch because I came from the quilting world, and for a while there, variegated thread was a very popular way to quilt because then you can get multiple colors. When you have a quilt made with lots of different fabrics, you want to have maybe thread that is all different colors. So I have several that are from this is Star thread from Coats and Clark, and I have several that are kind of a different variations of pink or a different variation of turquoise, which I really like, something like that. So maybe someday I'll get out my other threads and start playing with stitching in different colors. But for now, I like the black because it always works. It always works really well. So thread, if you're going to switch between sewing paper and sewing fabric, just be aware that sewing on the paper is going to dull your needle. So honestly, I haven't changed out my needle in a while. I'm pretty lazy about doing that, but I don't really sew or stitch on anything really that often. So I would probably, if I was going to sit down and make a quilt on this machine, I'd probably switch to a new needle. But so I would just say, just be aware that as you sew more paper, your needle's going to get duller. It might be harder to stitch through the paper because it's thicker. It might be harder to stitch through fabric if you have a duller. And so most of the time, like with paper piecing, because it's done over and over on paper, they say, okay, just switch out your needle after you're done when you're quilting. So that's the needle, the thread, the machine. Again, this is a straight stitch machine. You can use another machine. The foot is a plain 1/4 inch foot. You could get a machine and have, on my other machine, I have a walking foot. The walking foot has little teeth on the bottom of the foot. I don't know if you can really see the foot. Can you see the foot? There's the foot. I can't really take it off of the machine because it's screwed on there, but that's the foot. And then the walking foot, let me show you what a foot looks like. This is pretty close to what that presser foot looks like. Okay, so here's the presser foot that's just going to allow you to run your paper. It'll run through, you'll stitch in the center. But this is flat on the bottom, okay? It has nothing on there to grab the paper or the fabric, whatever you're quilting with, sewing on. This is a walking foot, okay? And these can run different prices. I don't have one for my vintage machine because it's not super easy to find them. They didn't have them all for those machines. They do exist. I just haven't gotten one. I have one for all my other machines. I just don't have one for that machine. This is for my Opal. And oh my goodness, sometimes they call it an even feed foot. Also, some machines that are fancier have it built in already. So what this is that this has feed dogs. These are the little teeth. And there's actually little teeth under here, which is built into your machine, that feed the fabric through. So when you're quilting, you would actually drop your feed dogs and you would use a foot that doesn't have anything. The quilt foot usually looks, I don't know, something kind of like this one where there's almost nothing there. There's absolutely like nothing touching your fabric. So you can move your fabric around. There's nothing moving it and there's nothing holding it down or anything. So you could just freely move it around. So sometimes I'll use my other machine, because it has a walking foot already on it. And I like that because if there's something that you're sewing that's kind of thick, you might want to have something that has a little more tooth to it, literally. And it will push and it will feed the paper or the fabric, whatever, from the top and from the bottom, okay? So that's why you want a walking foot. It helps it to walk. It helps your whatever you're sewing to walk through your machine evenly. That's also why it's called an even feed foot. I like having that for my other machine, but for this one, it's fine. Okay. So that's the foot, and again, it's not anything special. It's not even a quilting machine that you can drop down the feed dogs. You could potentially cover the feed dogs on this machine if you wanted to, if you really wanted to be able to move your stuff around. But I'm going to show you, it doesn't hurt. I move my stuff around all the time. I've sewed most of these things actually with the walking foot, which would make it evenly feed more, but I actually just spin the paper around and it doesn't hurt anything. All right, so I'm going to sit down so I can sew because I can't reach my machine otherwise. So if my voice doesn't, I can't see comments. There they are. But I have them on my iPad, but it's going to go away in a minute. Okay, so this is what we're gonna stitch on. Let me grab. I thought I would just take some of my old iCads and stitch something on them. Okay. This is what's fun. This is, when you're stitching on something like this, I mean, we'll see how it works. It could be a total disaster, but hopefully it's not. Like this, I've used the embossing folder. It's paper, and it's glued down onto a card. Same thing here as paper glued onto a card, okay? So, we're gonna just stitch some things onto this. Maybe we'll stitch this butterfly. I think it's really cool because you can use a sewing machine to add elements if you don't want to if you don't want to glue them, you don't want to staple them, you want to add something that has a little bit more texture to it. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can add elements, okay? We can also stitch on this, okay? So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try talking louder so that you can hear me because I know when I sit down, my voice isn't, my mouth is not right next to the thing, and I won't be able to necessarily see what I'm doing. Okay. All right. So, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to move my camera. Okay. So you just put your whatever it is you want to sew under your presser foot. You drop your presser foot down. You should always start, and this is just kind of a rule of thumb anyway, on a machine that's an older machine that's going to stop wherever the needle stops. It doesn't have an up or a down when it stops. It depends on what kind of machine you have. If it's newer, it will likely stop with it already up. Oh, look, I already stitched here, but I'll stitch again. I would just put the needle down. So just turn the flywheel to put the needle down. That starts it, and it keeps your thread, and you hold your thread a little bit to keep it from getting knotted up. Still a good rule of thumb no matter what you're doing. If you're sewing, there's a little bit of another trick you can do, but so I know it's hard to see, and I'm really sorry, but I'm just gonna stitch straight, and then hopefully in a minute here when I stitch in a circle, you'll be able to see. And then you just kind of stitch, and then whenever you stop, put your needle down if you want to turn. So put your needle down and then turn and then stitch again. Okay. And then you can just turn it and go, whoops, make sure you always put the press foot down. Let's go. Okay. Now if you want to stitch in a circle, you just move the paper, okay? There isn't anything that's really holding it down too much. If you have a newer machine, you may be able to adjust your presser foot pressure, which is just literally how much it pushes down on your whatever you're sewing. So you might be able to adjust that, and that's helpful if you're doing free motion quilting too. You want to have less pressure so that you can move your fabric around more. You might want to change to a foot that has that open, like a circle, so that it doesn't have anything holding down onto the paper. But I have no issues sewing in circles with this. All you have to do is kind of go slow. And I'm going very slow, and I'm just moving the paper around in a circle. I can actually go a little faster, but and if you get to a point where you feel like you're stuck, I'm sorry, you can't really see. I'm so sorry. It looks like there's you cannot see what I'm doing. I'm sorry. There's really no good way to film this. Let me see if I can Move that. Oh, okay, I don't think I can. Oh, my whole dilly bop's gonna fall. Sorry, my whole my whole setup is not made for sewing fabric. Okay. Okay, Marpy. Can you see what I'm doing? Does it make sense? Give me a sign that what I was doing makes sense. I'm trying to talk you through it as I'm doing it because I know that the angle is really bad. So it's really just a matter of trying it. Okay, sorry y'all. There we go. My thing is not, I have to adjust my, okay, good. I'm glad you can see what I'm doing. All right. Maybe we move, oh, look at that. We'll just move it over a little bit. We'll tilt it a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't make you sick. There we go. Let's try that angle. I don't really sew, I don't sew on camera very often. Like I said, I have one that's a clamp, but when I sew with it, it causes the table to shake and you can't, because it's clamped to the table and, okay. So let me try it again. Let's see. Just want to get that angle to the needle. All right, so as I'm sewing, I'm just gonna move my paper. Now I'm really far away from my camera, and from my phone. Okay, and then when you're done, you just lift up your needle. If you have a newer machine, you may very well it may just stop with the needle up. Mine does not do that. You just cut it off. It's good to leave a little tail. If you want to tie it off, you can just, and you don't want the thread on the top, go to the back, pull the bottom thread. This is your bobbin thread that's on the back here. It will pull a little stitch from the top thread, and you'll see that. And you just grab that, pull it through, and then you can tie it in a knot. Hopefully you could see that. Okay, and then you can just tie that in a knot or whatever. Same goes here. See how this is the bobbin thread, and if I just pull it, it will pull through. If you don't want to do that, see, then that way there's nothing on the front. If you don't want to do that and you have a machine that can do backstitch easily, mine doesn't do it super easily and I forget. Okay, maybe it is the pressure. I don't know. But you can check it, okay? Or try using a foot, if you have one, that is open or wider, like has a bigger opening and doesn't have as much holding down onto the fabric, if that makes any sense. Okay, so yeah, if you like the dangling things, that's great. If you don't want that, then like I said, you can pull the thread to the back, or you could just back stitch at the top and the bottom, which is what I did. Or the start and the end, which is what I did on that envelope. Which I don't know where my envelope went, but so let me do another one and we'll just keep doing it. Okay, so let's put the butterfly. I don't really know how this is gonna work, but we'll try it, okay? Let's see what happens when we do a butterfly. Actually, we'll start stitching him on his tummy. This is actually really thick cardstock, so it could be really good or really bad. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. And then I'm gonna put my needle down and I'm gonna go forward. I'm just gonna kind of follow. If you need to turn, this is a good example. Oh, my hand's in the way. If you need to turn, you put your needle down, like I said, right? And then you just lift up your presser foot, and I'm going to follow the outline of the butterfly. So I'm just going to kind of go very slow, and then put the needle down, turn it a little bit, go very slow. Actually, I already had the needle down, but I'm just kind of in a routine of doing that. So, and then I'm going to come back in. And then put it down, come back up. I'm just stitching the outline of the butterfly. If you go over the paper, it's not a big deal. Just go backwards or make it go back on. It'll look like a design. This is the other part. You have to accept that this is the design, this is how it's going to be. It's not easy to control it necessarily, okay? Okay, I'm going to go back, and I'm just going to keep going up the butterfly's wing. There's a little spot here where the paper goes off, so I'm not going to stitch on that because I'm not going to stitch off the paper, but I'm going to keep going. I think I'll turn here, and then I'll come back down. I'm just doing this to secure it to the paper. I'm not really doing it to add a lot of extra elements, but you can if you want to. I hope you can see what I'm doing. It's really hard to tell. Yep. I mean, it moves. It moves how I want it to move because I'm in control of the machine, right? So I would say paper moves a lot easier than fabric, actually. You can go back, and because it's a butterfly, like it has these really, I think this is a stamp, actually. Oopsie, I didn't put my needle down. If you don't put your needle down, all you're doing is you're not securing where you're stitching, and that's not a huge deal, but, you know, it's helpful to have your needle down. Okay, so I'm just kind of running in and doing some whatever stitching here. Since I'm doing black over the black, you probably won't see, I don't even see really what I'm stitching. Okay, I'm just gonna call that a day right there. So we can look at it. So you can't really see the stitching all that great, but you know, if you look on the back, you can see a butterfly. But so yep. It's there, he's secured, he's not coming off. Okay, I like him a lot. So you can leave the dangles. You could even, if I did it right, I could have put the dangles at the top and it would have looked like his antenna. But I did try to go back here a little bit. Like you go back and add more of that in. I might go back and add more detail in there. Oh, sorry, I was off camera a little bit. Add more detail there. But see, that's kind of fun. Okay. Let's see. I mean, I think that's pretty good. Do you have any other thoughts? I have a lot of other ideas. I love, like I have these tags. August is coming. We're going to do a challenge. It's called Tag Your It. Here's a little sneak peek for the August challenge. Okay, so I had some tags that I use for whatever reason. I sometimes use them to clean my gel plate, or I was using them for practice. And I'm just kind of going in and adding stitched designs. Just fun. Just added stitching elements on there. Tags are easy. Tags are fun because they're simple and small, just like an index card. It's small, easy, simple, and there's absolutely no risk to doing that, right? It's not a canvas that you're going to be making into a fancy art piece. It's just a tag or a piece or an index card. So, you know, whatever it is you're doing, like it's fun. It's easy to stitch on. Like it's harder to stitch on a page in your art journal because it's part of a journal, you know? So if you're making your own art journal, maybe you stitch on the pages first before you put it down. But, I put my little butterfly away. Should put him back down here. So yeah. And so there we go. That's about it for stitching. It's really, really easy. I think if you're having issues, just message me and I'll try to help you walk through why you might be having some issues. It also depends a lot on your machine. And also the presser foot that you use could be causing issues if you're having problems with stitching. So that's about all I've got for today, but I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I hope this was helpful and fun, and I hope that you'll use some paper stitching and try, if you do and you want to share a picture of it, you know, you can always share it here on my Facebook, or you can post it on Instagram and tag me at Peacecraft Love, or PCL Maker Squad, or just at Peacecraft Love, because that way people remember me, and I'll see it. If you tag the tag, I won't necessarily see it unless I look at it, but if you tag my name, Peacecraft Love, I'll see it, and I would love to encourage you and share whatever it is that you make too. So so cool. All right. Well, you put your house up this morning. I don't know what that means. But we'll chat some more later probably, but thank you so much for being here today. And don't forget, I put everything up on YouTube on Saturdays, 2 videos a week. And, oh, okay. And then, so Tuesday I did a live with KP from Art Foamies, which was super fun. We were both making art at the same time. So there's it's a split screen, and you can see what she does and what I do, and we're just chatting the whole time, and it was just absolutely so fun. And I think I want to do a lot more of that going forward with other people who want to do art in tandem with me on Instagram, because I really don't know how to do it on Facebook. But yeah, so check that out tomorrow. It's either on Instagram or tomorrow when it goes up on YouTube, and I'll be around. So see you laters. Okay. Have a good day. Bye.